All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We are on day 3. We've actually made quite a bit of progress already. Thank you to those of you who sent your private self-introductions. They are helpful and they give me lots of good insights into who you are. Remember that you can continue to submit that if your circumstances change and you want to alert me of anything that needs to occur. Could I ask somebody to close our classroom door for us, please? Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so I need to take attendance, so I need you to shout out if you are here really, really loud, all right? And again, I'm only going to go by last names. Adams. Here. Berger. Here. Cagle. Cagle. Collins. Collins. Mann. Here. McNeil. Here. Monroe. Here. Sandoval. Here. Taylor. Taylor. And Vibert. All right, thank you very much. Okay, as you can see today, I want to go over a couple more reminders, and every day I'm going to be touching bases on the term project to bring you more and more up to speed on what the expectation will be. We do have a lecture. We're going to conclude chapter 1 lecture today. At the end, I'm hoping we might even have a chance to do a little bit of discussion. And you can see that we're going to really hone in on the definition of interpersonal communication, because it's easy to misunderstand it with some other parts of communication studies. There's always overlap, but there's some definition elements that really differentiate why this particular discipline is studied a little bit differently from the others. We're going to be talking about functions, needs, and goals for interpersonal communication. And remember that the abbreviation is IPC. In this class first.
No, I'm not. Whoever saw in person.
Hear me?
Yes.
And you see me on the screen?
Yes.
All right, so Hi, everybody. Thank you for your patience. You are amazing. All right. Let me adjust this angle again. See. Wait. Everything has to be reset, so it's a little crazy. How's that? Very good. Yes, thank you for the thumbs up with our gentleman in the back. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dana. All right. And we're back. All right. So, it looks like the recession is still recording. Go figure. All right. Okay, so yes, if you would like to open up your textbooks to section 1.3, it might be on page 21 if that will work on your element. So let's start off with talking about the actual definition of interpersonal communication. Now, there are some components, and I guarantee this is going to be one of the questions on the test. So in order for it to be interpersonal communication, we have to do like this little check boxes, and these are the elements that have to be present. So we talked last class about the crazy process of communication and looked at the different models, such as the linear and the transactional, etc. Well, so there always has to be a process going on. But there has to be that exchange, all right? So there's got to be two people who are interacting. Without that exchange in some kind of a context, it's not interpersonal. Now here's the operative phrase. This one must be interdependent, and this one must be interdependent on the other one. Okay, so what that means is that there has to be a mutual influence that is occurring. All right, it cannot just be a random interaction. So let me give you an example. And it also has to have, in unique ways, or there has to be a relationship forming a bond that has to conform to social and cultural norms. Okay, so my friend Adam back there in our ECA group, he works at Food Lion. If I go in and, no, if a random person who Adam doesn't know goes in and talks to him, that is not interpersonal communication. Yes, there's a little bit of influence. Yes, there is an exchange of information, but they're not interdependent. They don't rely on each other for a bond. All right, so it's not interpersonal. However, if I come in because we have a relationship of him being a student in my class and a member of ECA, and then I have a discussion or a question or an interaction with him, then it is interpersonal communication, because that interdependency is going to live on outside of that single exchange. Okay, so back in the classroom or on a club activity or some other means. Okay, so those are going to be some really important elements, that the influence is long lasting, is a part of building a bond, etc. All right. We also recognize that there are some interdependent interpersonal communication expectations according to social and cultural norms. So everybody needs to learn this word, phatic, F-A-T-I-C, phatic communication. An example of phatic communication is you're walking by somebody and you say hi. Okay? The cultural norm is to do that. in the state of North Carolina, not in California, but in the state of North Carolina, when I am passing a car on my street, phatic communication is for me to wave. All right? That's a social North Carolina norm within the culture of the South that means you were nice and pleasant. Outside of here, nobody does that well, except for in the southern states. All right? So phatic communication, if it is not exhibited, can be very troublesome for people. All right? So I want you to start thinking about your term project. And let me give you an example. Last semester, one of my students' term project was looking at people from Norway. And the reason is because for work, this student travels to Norway and has many interactions with Norwegians. And his response to the way they behave, a lot driven by phatic communication and other communication norms, is that his perception is that they are rude, that they're not friendly. Because he's evaluating or judging their normative behaviors based on the norms and cultures of here in the United States. All right? So his project was to try and figure out what's going on. So your term project has to be about an international group of people, somebody who's different from you. And so he discovered all kinds of very, very interesting elements that demonstrated they're actually very friendly, but in a different way. That they are not rude, they are efficient, all right? And there's other elements. So be thinking as we go through this kind of exploration in this class of who it is you want to explore more, right? So there has to be a bond, a desire for a bond. There has to be a relationship. There has to be some degree of shared normatives in terms of social and cultural behaviors that will have some long-lasting effect, all right? So interpersonal communication is not just on the fly. It means it's going to be some meaningful build, all right? So here's the operative phrases. In order for the communication to be IPC, there has to be an interdependency. There has to be a desire to build a social connection or a bond. It is based on where the interaction occurs, so that's context, all right? So culture, social, economic, psychological, etc. And there has to be a significant influence, not just a little, right? All right, so when we step back and we look at that definition of IPC, what I want you to do now, and I really need to hear from you guys, is I want you to tell me, why do you think aviation, massage therapy, early childhood, the ophthalmologist, you can spell it, I can't, group, automotive, so you tell me now, why do you think these associate degree programs require the participants, the graduates, to have taken this course? Okay, so somebody shout it out. You can move your thing down. Yes, move your thing down just a little bit.
Is it because that it needs us to communicate with others on a deeper level than saying, hi, hello, how are you?
Okay, so what's the purpose of the deeper level?
Mainly to understand people a little better and understand where they're coming from at the same time as trying to project an idea that isn't an overbearing concept.
Okay, very good. So they got to go deeper. Deeper and understanding the richness, what's going to be a result? Now, these are business degrees. So what is it from a business orientation would serve a good purpose for this?
The connections, new clients, employers.
Yes. So now we've got the employers and the clients and the employees all coming together for one goal, right? And what's the goal? Is to make money. And repeat customers, relationship customers, relationship with the parents of a child, relationship with the child, with any of these customers, a therapist, all of these elements are going to be crazily involved in making that connection for mutual influence and mutual satisfaction in the relationship. All right, so it's got to be some positive coming out of it. Okay, good. All right, so keep that in mind. So all of you that are in this class thinking, why am I here? Okay, that's why you're here. Okay, the other thing to recognize is that according to employers, IPC skills ranks among the top 10, in some fields even the top 5 of what they're looking for when they hire people. Now, I've got this word up here, these words up here that say IPC serves functions because we have needs. Humans have needs. And we have goals then to get those needs satisfied. And we're going to do that by utilizing the function of interpersonal communication. All right? So let's take a look at how that means. The first one is what's known as the physiological and the psychological. Okay, so remember these are those P's, all right? So with those P's, we know that we have to survive, all right? Our mind has to survive as well as our physical being, all right? So we are going to use IPC the way I just explained it so that we can survive, all right? So that we can actually then thrive, especially when you start to think about the psychological and when you're physically healthy. And then with that comes the ability to heal or to reconnect or to re-heal or remend or whatever so that you can continue these elements when somebody is hurt or harmed. All right? Now, the other one is very important, all right? And that's the functional. Oh my gosh, you guys need to pay very close attention to the functional because the functional, all right, the functional is the one we use the most. The functional goal of of being instrumental is so that we can get things done. All right? Tangible. Mostly tangible, sometimes not necessarily tangible, maybe intangible. All right? So let's take a look at the instrumental. An instrumental goal might be long-term, might be short-term. All right, so my goal to have Dana come down and talk to you was highly instrumental to ask you not to leave, to be patient while I was able to get the lights back on and the computer connected again so that our relationship, our interchange can continue. All right, so it might be day to day, minute by minute. It also is going to really focus on compliance gaining strategies or tactics. I'm going to go into those a lot more in detail. So think of that as compliance gaining. You're able to get somebody to comply, to obey your wish or your desire or your need. However, it can also be used for compliance resistance. You don't want to comply with somebody else. You want to say no. You want to reject. You want to build your boundary, that kind of thing. All right, so it can be reciprocal. It is going to help you to ask for as well as give to. And that is information. Very important function of instrumental goals and needs. All right, so you're going to ask for help, but you're also going to be able to give help. And if you think about it again, how we use this within the professions, it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Not only from an information perspective, but it also, same thing, applies to asking for and giving support. Now, support is part of that psychological, okay? To build a person's ego, to reaffirm a person, to help them feel good about themselves, especially if they've been hurt emotionally or physically, etc. All right, any questions about that goal? More to come. Okay, the next one is relational goals, okay? Now the relational, these tie strongly into all those significant people in your life. Relational. Now you're going to have a lot of relational goals. And you also have a lot of relational needs. But do you communicate them to your significant other or to your supervisor or to a parent or a sibling? Do you use effective interpersonal communication to achieve your goals, to meet your needs for relationships? All right. So in this category, there will be times when you will be altruistic, which means you will put your goals on your needs in second place. You all know how that works. You don't really want to go out. You just want to stay home. You just want to watch a movie. You want to eat popcorn. You want to just do nothing. But your significant other wants to get out, tired of being in the house, doesn't care about COVID, wants to go party. All right. Okay. So you might give in and go with the person because you care about the relationship and you don't want the person to feel like you don't care. Okay, you want to keep the person happy. All right. Therefore, it can also be complementary, which means that that significant other can do the same thing for you. And when you really say, no, I don't want to go out, I want to protect you, I want to protect me from the COVID, let's just watch a movie, let's pop some popcorn, or I'll make some fudge, or let's do something like that. Okay, so it can be complementary because the person in your relationship is willing to give up for you. All right. Relational means, and this is an important one, especially if you have issues with this one, is you celebrate important events with that other person, an anniversary, a job promotion, or what have you. All right, and you don't forget anniversaries, etc. Another one is that you honor, all right, the other person. So you might honor the other person's accomplishment. Maybe they get a promotion, or they got an A on a test, or whatever it might be. So you honor, you give praise to, you give respect to that person. You also just plain spend time in the relationship with that person. A major complaint is, oh, you're always going out with your friends. You never spend time with me. Right? I've heard these things. Your parents do that too. Man, can't you just stay home for dinner once in a while and be a family? Right? Yeah, you've heard these. And then the last one is you do what's called checking in. And in today's world, you guys check in all the time. Snapchat, Instagram, text, blah, blah, blah. It's constant, all right? But yeah, you do need to check in with the other person. My husband has his office in our house. I have my office in my house. And every once in a while, we'll just check in by I send him a happy face or a little heart. He does it back, okay? That's just keeping the relationship important. Now, there's also, and ding, 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 this is on your test. There's what's known as DTR talk. This stands for defining the relationship talk. These are conversations, these are words or even phrases that let the other person know what is the relationship. Okay? And this is an interesting form of study. People who are assertive are good about talking about boundaries, good about talking about needs and wants. In fact, that's what therapists do all the time, is working with people to be able to do that. People who are not good at that will have problems because the relationship may be cloudy, unsure. One may think it's one way, others may think it's the other. All right, so these are conversations or phrases that could be something like, no, I don't like that. You just defined their relationship. Whatever the person was doing, you just said, no, that's not going to be in our relationship. Or another way is to say, you know what? I'm going to introduce you to my parents today as my boyfriend. Is that okay? All right? That's defining the relationship. Or I'm going to post on Facebook that we're now engaged. That's determining the relationship. Okay? So the reason we do that is to reduce uncertainty. Okay? We want to know, we want to be confident in whatever our relationship is. Okay? It helps to know, again, boundaries, such as, are we exclusive or not? It's also very important, as the example I gave before, to let somebody know when the line is crossed. Here's the line, and you just went over it. And you can imagine how important this one is if the behavior or the relationship because that is just not appropriate, all right? So it could be if the relationship is unethical, a supervisor to an employee, or inappropriate, okay? A minister to a parishioner, or it might be a conflict of interest. Right? Such as if a person is running for office and you're also running for office, but your one party is different from the other, could be perceived as a conflict of interest. One of the things to use as a takeaway as you start to build your toolbox of skill sets is that oftentimes the power of determining the relationship is when you can be explicit, overt, direct. Subtlety causes confusion. So oftentimes the more overt, the more direct, the more explicit you are in what is acceptable or not in the relationship, the better you're going to be. And later in the class, I'm going to talk to you about the stages that you go through in relationships. You're going to see how that works with testing the waters, so to speak. Okay? So, the next kind of function is what we call identity. It's your self-presentation. All right? It's your identity. Oops, identity. How do you identify with yourself, and how do you want others to identify you or identify with you? Okay? So when we're looking at self-presentation, oftentimes what we want is to be liked or respected, or just generally seen in a positive light, okay? Your self-presentation and identity is going to change, all right? Which means you adapt to a different circumstance, all right? So the identity that you project in going to a senior prom will be very different from the identity you project when going on a job interview. Okay? So you adapt and you change, and this is what we call our face. Our faces to meet the other people we are interacting with. We also self-present by sharing with others what are our skills and experience. And that's what I did with you guys at the very beginning of class on Monday, was I gave you all the reasons why I'm qualified to teach. And there is an association that you'll want to look up in your book that talks about, is the Association of Image Consultants on page 26, that talks about what's the ABCs, which represents appearance, behaviors, communication, are things that image consultants will actually work on for lots of different kinds of people. All right. Now, let me conclude by saying all of those types of functions work interactionally, simultaneously, all at the same time. You may emphasize one over the other given a particular need. So I'll pick up next class to talk about compliance gaining strategies, and then we'll talk about axioms. So that's next class. Thanks you guys for sticking around. Have a good one.